Bhagavad-gītā As It Is. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So let us offer our most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of Krishna, the Ipayan Srila Vyasadeva. Our most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and to Sri Arjuna, and also to the book Sri Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, and at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. May they bless us so that we are able to take to heart Krishna's instructions as he gave to Arjuna, and as Arjuna, with the right mental attitude, received these wonderful instructions. So we are reading from Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, chapter 11, verse 37, the universal form, so it's called this chapter. Kasmāc cha nameran mahātman kasmāc cha tena nameran mahātman garīyase brahmaṇo api ādi-kartre garīyase brahmaṇopi ādi-kartre ananta deveśa jagan-nivāsa ananta deveśa jagan-nivāsa tvam akṣaram sad-asat tat-param yat tvam akṣaram sad-asat tat-param yat kasmāc tena nameran mahātman garīyase brahmaṇopi ādi-kartre ananta deveśa jagan-nivāsa tvam akṣaram sad-asat tat-param yat kasmāc tena nameran mahātman garīyase brahmaṇopi ādi-kartre ananta deveśa jagan-nivāsa tvam akṣaram sad-asat tat-param yat kasmāc tena nameran mahātman
kasmāt mahātman
garīyase brahmaṇopi ādi-kartre
garīyase brahmaṇopi ādi-kartre
ananta jagan-nivāsa
ananta
jagat-nivāsa
tvam akṣaram sad-asat tat-param yat
tvam akṣaram
sad-asat tat-param yat.
Read.
Kasmāt, why? Cha, also. Te, unto you. Na, not. Nameran, offer proper obeisances. Mahātman, O Great One. Garīyase, you are better than. Brahmaṇa, Brahmā. Api, although. Ādi-kartre, the Supreme Creator. Ananta, unlimited. Deveśa, God, deveśa, God of the gods. Jagat-nivāsa, O refuge of the universe. Tvam, you are. Akṣaram, imperishable. Sat-asat, cause and effect. Tat-param, transcendental. Yat, because. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. O Great One, who stands above even Brahmā, you are the original master. Why should they not offer their homage up to you, O limitless one? O refuge of the universe, you are the invincible source, the cause of all causes, transcendental to this material manifestation. Purport. By this offering of obeisances, Arjuna indicates that Krishna is worshipable by everyone. He is all-pervading, and he is the soul of every soul. Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Mahātman, which means that he is most magnanimous and unlimited. Ananta indicates that there is nothing which is not covered by the influence and energy of the Supreme Lord. And deveśa means that he is the controller of all demigods and is above them all. He is the center of the whole universe. Arjuna also thought that it was fitting that all the perfect living entities and all powerful demigods offer their respectful obeisances unto him, because no one is greater than him. He especially mentions that Krishna is greater than Brahmā, because Brahmā is created by him. Brahmā is born out of the lotus stem grown from the navel abdomen of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who is Krishna's plenary expansion. Therefore, Brahmā and Lord Shiva, who is born of Brahmā, and all other demigods must offer their respectful obeisances. Thus the Lord is respected by Lord Shiva and Brahmā and similar other demigods. The word akṣaram is very significant because this material creation is subject to destruction, but the Lord is above this material creation. He is the cause of all causes, and being so, he is superior to all the conditioned souls within this material nature, as well as the material cosmic manifestation itself. He is therefore the all-great Supreme.
kasmāc tena nameran mahātman garīyase brahmaṇopi ādi-kartre ananta deveśa jagan-nivāsa tvam akṣaram sad-asat tat param yat. O Great One, who stands above even Brahma, you are the original master. Why should they not offer their homage to you, O limitless one? O refuge of the universe, you are the invincible source, the cause of all causes, transcendental to this material manifestation. All these prayers and realizations are coming from Arjuna after he sees the universal form. This is more or less the position he has taken of a conditioned soul. Arjuna is not a conditioned soul. However, in order to facilitate the revelation of this age-old knowledge of the yoga, as Krishna puts it right in the beginning of the Bhagavad-gītā, that yoga nashta parantapa. Oh, slayer of enemies, parantapa. This yoga system seemed to have been lost due to the ravages of time. So I have chosen you. So that in itself is very indicative of Arjuna's position. However, it is not easy for Arjuna, as it is for the Supreme Lord, to play the part of a mortal human being. Even the Lord is playing the part of a mortal human being. That is his Leela. So is also Arjuna's Leela. He's acting very similar to us ignorant fools. Right in the beginning, in spite of Krishna telling him that, look, you simply be instrumental. They have all been killed. You don't have to worry about the victory. Your victory is already yours. Yet, Arjuna was refusing to fight. Our condition is the same. Krishna is telling our conditioned souls, you are meant to live in the eternal abode of mine. That's what you meant. Because you belong there. You simply have to give up this attachment for this material world and develop your attachment for the spiritual world. Because that is your actual nature. And Maya Devi, due to your ignorance, has given you a nature which is according to your karma, but it's not your real nature. You don't belong here. So why, on one hand, you're lamenting that, oh, Maya Devi is harassing me. I'm constantly suffering. I'm constantly having to ward off continuous siege attacks from greed, anger, fear, and yet we're not taking the steps that would actually free us from all this. So this is the wonderful message of Bhagavad-gītā. One of them. Krishna, the Absolute, he has to satisfy the queries of every single living entity, all the different categories of consciousness. If by chance, a jiva who is atheistic, but is a moralist, there are such people. Or one who is atheist, but is sunken in sinful activities. Similarly, there are theists who are moralists, but have actually no understanding of transcendence. So there's so many different categories of consciousness, levels of consciousness. So Krishna is speaking to every one of them. Wherever you want to start. And Arjun, he is taking the part of one who is solidly placed on the dictum, seeing is believing. Yes, it's a dictum. Seeing is believing. Yes, you're saying this, Krishna. That's all right. But somehow or the other, due to my long, God knows, you alone know, since how long I have forgotten my own identity. I want to speak of your identity. I have also not realized that I should not make so much grand effort to have a pleasant, luxurious life on earth. All these things I've forgotten. So, since you are forgetfulness, Krishna, you have made me forget. And that is true, because you wanted to forget. Krishna is telling us you wanted to forget, and therefore I am fulfilling your desire. If you wanted to remember, then here, Bhagavad-gītā, come, listen. Then you will again get all the knowledge. And remember, at some stage, I have created you for my own transcendental form. So at that time, there was an intimate relationship between you and me. Since I have created you from my own body, transcendental body, how can anyone deny the eternal connection? Because I am eternal, Satchidananda Vigraha. I'm eternal. So every single part of me is eternal. So you are also eternal. Mam eva hi angsa, jiva loka, jiva bhuta sanatanam. Mam eva hi angsa. All of you are part and parcel. So jiva bhuta, the living entity, is sanatan. Sanatan means ever existing. We may not have been existing as individuals, but we were always existing. Because if we were not always existing, but was created at some point, then certainly the soul has to die. But the soul never dies. So you were never created. Sanatan. Always there. Always there. So, seeing is believing, so Krishna inspires Arjuna from within. You ask me to show you my universal form. And in one vision, I will completely obliterate all doubts you may have. In the beginning, you say that, oh, I want to become your disciple now because I am so disturbed by seeing those who want to fight with me and kill me. They have assembled there to kill me. I can understand that Duryodhana out of envy and Jayadratha and this and that, there's so many. But Bhishma, he raised me on his lap, told stories of the history, putting us to sleep. Because my father wasn't there. At a very early age, he left. He's there to kill me. Dronacharya taught me everything and promised to make me the best archer in the world, invincible. And he has kept his promise. So, what is my position now, Krishna? So you please show me your universal form. Let me see, I'm curious. But Krishna showed his universal form. You see, the universal form which is described also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And there Srila Sutta Goswami, Shukadeva Goswami is saying that that universal form is meant for neophytes. Those who have not yet started deity worship. Deity worship is the first step in Vaidhi Bhakti. But prior to that step in Vaidhi Bhakti, when the jiva is fully in ignorance and has absolutely no inkling of how this universe came into existence, how he came into existence. This is just completely bewildered. So for such persons, to structure his mind in a certain way that it thinks in a rhetoric and logical, systematic way, will come to the conclusion, yes, there must be a creator. Now, who is this creator? So that universal form which Sukadeva Goswami was describing in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this universal form that you're showing now to Arjuna, they're one and the same. However, that universal form which Sukadeva Goswami was speaking of is not an active form, very passive. Whereas this form that you're exhibiting to Arjuna, first of all, this before you even displayed this form, you told Arjuna, with these eyes, Arjuna, you cannot see this form. So let me give you divyam dadami me chakshu. Divyam dadami me chakshu. Let me give you a transcendental vision, divyam. Pashe my aishwaryam. So that you can see my actual majesty, my actual power. Because it is not the same, the passive universal form Rather, it is a dynamic universal form, and it is to appear so that it will completely clear away all your doubts. So our position is the same thing. So much doubt is there. Even if we are reading, hearing, discussing, somehow the doubt persists. Why? Because we cannot get rid of our fear, we cannot get rid of our anxiety, our suffering. Then how is it possible to believe Krishna? How can I believe what you're saying? You're saying so many things. Right in the beginning, you're saying one should be equipoised. Equipoised. Dukheshu anudvignumana, shukheshu vigataspriya. In the face of dukkha, suffering, anudvignumana, very calm, not agitated in the face of suffering, dukkha. And sukheshu vigataspriya. And when it comes to mental, material happiness, there's no euphoric reaction. Just plain simple. Because both suffering has come on its own accord. Because this is the nature of this material prakriti. That's its nature. It is not picking any one of us out to torment us, specifically punish us. No, that's the nature. But we feel tormented because we are not situated in our own nature. Therefore, we feel tormented. So when Krishna is saying equipoise, what he is meaning is that be situated in your original identity. So now with this prayer, after Arjuna sees Krishna's displaying his universal form, he understands, oh great one, who stands above even Brahma. As Srila Prabhupada says that that Arjuna was glorifying Krishna as being who stands above Brahma is rather immature, let us say. Now, what is Brahma? Brahma is the creator, but he has received the entire power of creation from the Lord. But for us, oh, Brahma is the creator, a mighty person, and so is this. But one who has read the Srimad Bhagavatam will have a different opinion about Lord Brahma. Right from the beginning of the creation, from his creation, when Brahma was created, created means he was generated out of the lotus navel of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, did not know. As soon as he opened his eyes, sitting atop his lotus, he looked everywhere around. The Garbha Udaka ocean, the ocean, is in the middle of this Viroja. Huge, humongous expanse of water. where one can't see from one side to the other. Nobody. It's impossible for Brahma from his place of where he was. Although the lotus was very high, because within the stem of the lotus, all the 14 planetary systems were there. It's not a small lotus, huge. Of course, in the compressed form, not as we see as it is here. For 10,000 years he had to meditate. Tapaha, he heard this word. And Krishna personally appeared, initiated him, empowered him, and they took a nice conversation. And Brahma couldn't understand why Krishna wanted to create this material world. And then much later, even after receiving mantra initiation from Govinda, still he is not convinced. He goes all the way to Vrindavan and he arrives at the juncture where Aghasura had swallowed all his friends. And Krishna also entered. And then Krishna comes out. Aghasura is dead. Brahma observes all this. Still, he wanted to put him to test. How is this young cowherd boy, Supreme Personality of Godhead? How is it possible? So, he puts him to test. And then he finally realizes that he's not the only Brahma. He was always under the false impression that he was the only Brahma with 4 heads. Everyone else has only 1 head. I, Brahma, have 4 heads. So Brahma was thinking that he was the only one. But then later on, when he found out in Dwaraka, visiting Krishna to beg his forgiveness for being foolhardy in stealing all the calves. At that time, Krishna was too young to graze the cows, only after the age of 6. Cowherd boys are allowed to take the cows and graze. And so he was grazing only the calves. And there in Dwaraka he saw hundreds and thousands of Brahmaji come flying in their Hansa carrier and paying obeisances at the lotus feet of Krishna, their golden crowns touching his lotus feet. And then he realized, oh. So Arjuna's saying that even above Brahma was rather puerile in one sense. And then, of course, he compares after that. Then he goes into that, oh limitless one, oh refuge of the universe. You're the refuge of the universe. The universe rests not just the universe. There are millions of universes. The entire creation you can have it in your mouth. The entire creation, Mother Yashoda saw in his little son's mouth. He was very small at that time. The refuge of the universe. You are the invincible source. The cause of, you are the invincible source. Invincible source means a source which has always been there, is there, and will be there. Because the universe is not created only one time. This creation is always created, maintained, and annihilated. So you always remain the source for everything, the cause of all causes. Although you are very intimately connected with this material world, with this material creation, you're still completely transcendental. Any questions? This is a question-answer session. I forgot actually. I went beyond my time. So any questions?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Haribol.
Haribol. It's said that a devotee has to, at one point, to give up the activity of sankalpa vikalpa. And I want to ask regarding this, what about the first two limbs of Sharanagati? To accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness and reject everything which is harmful. Is this not sankalpa vikalpa?
First of all, actually these 6 limbs of Sharanagati, it doesn't have a serial, not like 1, 2, 3, 4. All the 6 limbs have to be practiced simultaneously. You must understand that. And sankalpa vikalpa, yes, but that sankalpa and vikalpa is conducted by the material mind, mana. Whereas, and this sankalpa and vikalpa conducted by the mind is based on logic and material knowledge. It is mostly speculation. Because the mind depends on its own self to make the decisions of what it wants and what it doesn't want. The mind is its own master. But when it comes to surrender, the mind surrenders to the authority of the scriptures. So at that time, the sankalpa and vikalpa is according to the scriptural injunctions. Therefore, it is not speculation, rather accepting the authority of the scriptures and taking a subservient position. That is surrender. So one can't compare the sankalpa and vikalpa functioning of the mind when it was not in the mode of surrender with the mind which comes under the subserviency of the paradigm of surrender. So any other questions? Bali Maharaj, did you do any research about our discussion from yesterday? Haribol, Bali Maharaj Prabhu.
Haribol,
Hare Krishna.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but you didn't hear me.
There was some problem actually. You asked about that. I've been going through Sridhar Maharaj's Bhagavad-gītā to know more about Sarvadharmana Parityajya.
Right.
So let me see how it pans out. Then I will ask you more questions. But today I have a question that prior to advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how those philosophical concepts were explained in the absence of Achinta Bheda Bhed Tattva.
Well, the Rudra Sampradaya, they have this one and simultaneously different concept. Not as detailed as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us, because in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation of Achinta Bheda Bhed Tattva, or rather Rupa Goswamis and Jiva Goswamis, is much more detailed. So there was some understanding. The four sampradayas, they had their individual theories, spiritual concepts to explain this Prakriti, Purusha, and Jiva. These are the three main concerns, main topics of discussion. So each sampradaya had their own understanding according to the Brahma Sutra. And all of their argument, theories or concepts, spiritual concepts, are based on the Vedanta Sutra. So therefore it's authorized. However, the concept of Achinta Bheda Bhed Tattva in its delineated form as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us, it covers everything. It is the most exhaustive of all philosophical streams of thought. And this cannot be bested by any other thought or any other concept. This is the highest concept.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Oh, you're back.
Yes, I'm sorry, I could not hear your answer. I have to hear it later. But I have another question. The four regulative principles, are they to be considered absolute or according to time, place, and circumstance?
See, these it is actually not a part of spiritual life. Not a part of it. But when one practices spiritual life, even if one does not have these prerequisite before taking up spiritual life, Srila Prabhupada and our Rupanuga line, they have demanded this of us to facilitate the quick integration of Vaidhi Bhakti. See, Vaidhi Bhakti is not a part of Bhakti per se. So this is a part of Vaidhi Bhakti. So therefore, cannot be called absolute. And none of these, if one is practicing not practicing any of these, does not make him non-eligible to take up the path of chanting and hearing. This is a part of the Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma means the 4 varnas and 4 ashrams to follow. It's called Varnashram Dharma. Now in Kali Yuga, Mahaprabhu rejects this Varnashram Dharma. So therefore, the eligibility to practice bhakti does not depend on whether one follows these 4 regulatory principles or does not follow these regulatory principles. What is absolutely essential in following the path of bhakti is to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. That is the criteria. Everything else is not either eligibility or non-eligibility deciding. However, this 4 regulatory principles facilitates quicker integration of practicing Vaidhi Bhakti.
Yes, I understand, Gurudev. So, for example, the principle one should not get intoxicated. When one has to take medicine because of health issues, which is intoxicating, does one then violates this principle of intoxication, or is it relevant? Is the motivation behind taking this relevant in order to decide if one violates this principle or not?
You see, this is superfluous. This is a very superfluous thing. The most important fact is, am I surrendered to the spiritual master or not? That's what we should be asking, and that's what we should be trying for. Now, if we surrender fully to the spiritual master and the spiritual master says, don't do that, then we have to follow that. So it is not that taking intoxication is bad. It is bad because we are disobeying the spiritual master. However, if the case is such, I'll give you an example. In the early days in America, milk, cow's milk also, that was being sold in the supermarkets, they had liver extracts from that particular kind of fish, I forget, whatever it is. Liver extracts. So the devotees complained to Prabhupada and said that, so Prabhupada said, what can be done? You boil it and you drink it. Because it is more important to drink milk, especially for those who are following the vegetarian diet, is very important. Another example, when Ban Maharaj, Prabhupada's godbrother, was sent to London, and he wrote back to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada saying that nowhere can I find vegetarian food. Even if I go to any hostel or hotel or restaurant, they always have this meat. There's nothing called vegetarian. So Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada wrote back, you pick out the potatoes and other vegetables and get rid of the other things and eat it. The point here is the stress should not be on such rules and regulations, although Vaidhi Bhakti begins with rules and regulations. But rules and regulations are not Bhakti itself. It facilitates the practice of Bhakti. But it is not Bhakti proper if one is vegetarian. Garuda was not a vegetarian. And yet he was the Lord's carrier, living in Vaikuntha. So one should not engage the mind in such hair-splitting things regarding rules and regulations. One should concentrate on developing proper Shraddha. That is most important. And if taking an intoxicant as a medicine because one requires it, so what's the harm? As Krishna is saying that Vishaya vinivartanta niraharasya dehina rasavarjang rasapyasya param drishtva nivartate. It's very easy to give up the objects of sense gratification. But it is much more important to give up the desire for sense gratification. So we have to concentrate in that direction, how to give up the desire for it and not the object, because I might give up the object, but the desire will still remain. Now, how is it going to help us?
Hare Krishna. Is this structure of following the four principles has anything to do with Kali Yuga?
Well, actually, these were followed automatically by, in other yugas, by the Sattvic people. These are Sattvic characters. These are characteristics of a Sattvic person. So, It's not connected with any particular yuga. Although again, the ambience and the influence of yuga that certainly plays an important part, but it is not really dependent on particular yuga. Rather, it is dependent on the guna.
I read somewhere that it has been noticed that most of the prophets they may have come from other religions, have been more or less vegetarian. And why is that? If it is true, even Muhammad.
I don't know about Muhammad or any other person, but I do know that even Rajarshis, kings, were not vegetarian. They went on hunting.
Yeah, actually, the kings also happens to be Kshatriya. Maybe that is the reason.
Whatever it is, the point is that Kshatriya or not, they were devotees also.
Mm-hmm. One question I have: can tulsi be used as a medicine?
Of course. Otherwise, why should she have so many healing properties? What for? She wants to be used, but a devotee will always offer tulsi first to the Lord, and as his prasad, one should take tulsi.
No, after this COVID, there's so many tulsi drinks are in market, and they said there are immense benefits, and people are drinking it. So, for us, is it advisable to take those drinks?
You offer it to the Lord and take it. What's the problem?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
See,
One
as I
question.
said, at a certain stage, we have the misconception is that by following the rules and regulations, we are actually practicing spiritual life. Completely wrong. However, there have been instances where Prabhupada overlooked the fact that some of his disciples were doing this or that and breaking the regulatory principles, but Prabhupada never stopped them from their service to the Lord.
Hmm.
Never stopped them. Knowing fully well that they were engaged in illicit sex and this and that, fully aware. I know so many God brothers, they have told me also. Not just one, there are many such. So the point here is, yes, Srila Prabhupada wanted to bring a sattvic mindset. Through the proper practice, one develops a sattvic mindset, becomes influenced by the sattvic. But Prabhupada never stressed on it to the extent that, if you break the regular principles, then you are no more my disciple. Never said that.
Hmm.
Or that you're not eligible for Krishna Prem. He never said that.
Hmm. Yeah. But at the time of initiation, there's a lot of emphasis. I don't know how does it fit in on following the four principles.
Yes, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. One may or may not be able to. Generally, those who are staying in the ashram will have it extremely difficult to break the principles. They would have to go slightly outside. And they were doing that in America. They were doing that in America for several years, even after initiation. So, you see, Prabhupada, our acharyas cannot lower the standard. But if one is not able to keep the standard, then he was not discouraged to give up bhakti. Rather, he was encouraged to go on with bhakti and discouraged to do these, deviations. Give up this deviation. I mean, I can go on. There are so many instances I personally have experienced where Srila Prabhupada would shed tears if a devotee goes away due to some, because other devotees started picking on him for his weakness. And he had to leave. Prabhupada sent me. You go and get him. It takes so much energy to make a conditioned soul to come in the path of bhakti. And then he goes away. How unfortunate. He sent me.
Yes. One question that my mother has, that why these domesticated animals don't speak and they can express to the people they live with. What is a curse?
Curse is that it is not a curse. They're simply acting according to their nature and ability. Now, and we can ask the same question that why can't a human being stay awake the whole night or stand the whole day and night? It is it's the nature of our birth, of the particular form. It is not a curse. Naturally, it is due to one's karma that one gets such a body, but nobody has cursed him. He himself, by his own actions, has received that birth. So it's not anyone's curse. And if you're a dog doesn't speak, just as a human being cannot stand 24 hours every single day, just like a horse can, or keep the eyes open all the time, just like the fish. Fish has no eyelids. So, I mean, these are each form the Lord has given us has a specific characteristics, and we simply follow those characteristics.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Of the 4 principles that we're supposed to follow, which violation of which one can be most damaging?
Actually, what I heard is the meat eating. The most damaging.
Okay.
Gurudev?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Recently in a class you said that it's not true that a renounced person is more likely to get prem from Krishna than a grihasta. And I want to ask regarding this, is it exclusively the effort that we put, which Krishna sees and by which he makes us eligible to get prem, and not how successful we are in withdrawing from material enjoyment, in developing good qualities, withdrawing from sense enjoyment and these things, surrendering, fully surrendering?
These are all mostly external things. They don't belong to the path of bhakti. The deciding factor is how much of surrender we have and the amount of devotion we feel for the Lord. That is the main criteria. That is the criteria. Whether you are a grihastha or a sannyasi or a brahmachari, is completely external. Mahaprabhu rejects it himself. And in his verse, Naham Vipra Nacha Narapati Navaisha Nasudra Naha Varni, like that he said, Kintu Pradhan Paramanandar Pranamriter Gopi Bhartur Padakamala Dasha Dasanu Dasha. That is my identity. If I can come to that identity, then I am eligible for prem. Everything else is immaterial. Everything else is external. Gopi Bhartur Padakamala Dasha Dasanu Dash. The servant of the servant of the servant of. That is the criteria. Not whether I'm grihastha or sannyasi or brahmachari or brahman, shudra, vaishya, then all are externals.
Can I ask one more question? Yes, sorry.
Yes, so Gurudev, so my thought behind the question is, if the effort which we put to please Krishna is more relevant, or is this the decisive factor if we get Krishna prem only, or do we really have to reach a certain stage of surrender and devotion which is independent?
Automatically bring us up. If we are striving to please Krishna in us, then it will automatically, Bhakti Devi will give us the whole ladder that Srila Rupa Goswami talks of, from Shraddha all the way to Prema, this ladder. It is all to do with surrender. Everything, it has everything to do with surrender, nothing else. So more surrendered we are, that means the more we want to please Krishna with our service, that is surrender. To make all out effort to please Krishna, even at the expense of putting our lives in danger. It's an extreme point, but nevertheless. So there's everything else is secondary. Everything else is secondary.
Yes, I understand. And surrender, is this something which comes exclusively from the heart, or is it possible that one first surrenders on an intellectual level, and the heart follows.
Other way around. The surrender has to take place in the heart, and the intellect will tell us how to put into practice that surrender. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can I ask one question?
Okay, go ahead. Quick one.
No, if no time, then I'll ask some other day.
Look, I mean, just the opportunity that you have a question, just look at everyone else. They're silent and mute, as if they have understood everything. Go ahead.
Srila Prabhupada, in his lectures, has repeatedly and emphatically called grihasthashram as andakupa. But I've heard from many devotees that in grihasthashram one learns to be tolerant and one learns to serve. So how do you reconcile these two diametrically opposite things?
Well, you see, it depends to whom Srila Prabhupada was speaking. And in what particular context. See, our devotees are famous to take sentences and instructions out of context. If you look at the associates of Lord Chaitanya and the followers of Lord Chaitanya, you can count from the hundreds and thousands who were the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you can count on your hand, the fingers, how many were renounced. So let's be practical. One may say so many things.
But Mahaprabhu's associates were pure devotees. They were in a
No,
very
if they
different
were
level.
pure devotees, they didn't become pure devotees in one day, did they?
No, they were associates of Mahaprabhu.
But
So
what sort of argument is that?
what I mean
Just
to say that
because they were pure devotees, they can be grihasthas. Is that what your logical conclusion?
no, what I mean to say that as Srila
No.
Prabhupada
But answer this: is it your logical conclusion that a pure devotee must be a renounced?
no, pure devotee is a grihastha, he is not grihamedi. On the other
So we are not
hand,
talking about grihomedis. We are talking grihasthas.
yeah, a pure devotee can maintain all the rules and regulations, and that's the reason he doesn't go down that andakupa. That's what I
But
understood.
who is talking about grihomedis? All the time you're talking about grihasthas. How come you bring in the subject of grihomedi? We never even spoke of grihomedi.
What I mean that when I said that Mahaprabhu's associates were very elevated devotees, so they, because of their such elevated status,
No,
they were
that's
not.
not at all true. They were not all elevated devotees. That's not true. There's so many who was following. So many. He was going and preaching. Mahaprabhu was preaching everywhere, and they were not all. They were Jagai Madhai elevated devotees, according to you.
But they were not associates of Mahaprabhu.
Who says that? They were Jaya and Vijay.
Yeah. So the answer to this query or this problem is that grihasthashram is okay. One has to
Not grihastha ashram is okay. In Kali Yuga, grihastha ashram is the safest. Not okay.
mhm.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So let us offer our most humble obeisances to Srila Vyasadeva, our most humble obeisance at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his eternal associate Arjuna, and to all his other associates, and to the book Sri Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, and at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.